Hi, y'all. I'm Obscure Girl. I like movies. I like weird movies. I like weird, trippy, obscure movies that I feel like no one has seen or is talking about. Whether that be because they're just old, or the marketing was bad, or you're like, I think that was a fever dream I had when I was 5. I'm here to tell you it wasn't, so let's talk about it. And I'm seriously leaning into the was that a fever dream I had when I was 5 category for this month because I just want to talk about just a couple of those 80s, 90s cartoons that we definitely binge watched as a child, and now we're just like, wait, was that real? And I'm going to start off this episode with kind of a really interesting statement. You might be surprised, but Elvis Presley was my dad. Not really, but that's what my mom used to joke when I was super, super little. And I didn't realize she was joking until I was about 8 years old when she was pregnant with my brother. And I asked her, is Elvis the baby's dad too? And she goes, honey, Elvis died when I was 11. And I just go, Elvis is dead? And so, yeah, so to this day, if I see a picture of Elvis or anything like that, I'm just like, oh, hey, dad. Like, my mom was so obsessed. Which, again, she was 11 when he died. She was way past the era where people were usually obsessed with him. But my house was covered with Elvis memorabilia. Elvis sang me to sleep more than anyone else ever has. And yeah, so clearly I saw Rockadoodle.
Rockadoodle.
Yes, Rockadoodle from 1991, the cartoon about a rooster that's basically Elvis, and a little boy who gets turned into a cartoon cat and has to go and find the rooster Elvis because he has left the farm and gone to make a name for himself in the city. There's other stuff going on with this. There's something about existential, does this crow actually control the sun or not kind of situation. And there's also these magical evil owls that can change size and eat everything. But that's basically, yeah, that's Rockadoodle. And I loved it. I loved it so much. There is a Marilyn Monroe chick in this. Like, oh my God. So yeah, we're going to talk about it. I'm not going to really get that much into it. There's a couple of good voices in this, but we'll go as we go. Ready? We're going to go for full spoilers. And full spoilers. So we start out on kind of an existential note here. It's the voice of Baloo and Little John, and hey, was there a bear in a 1950s Disney movie? This guy.
Instead of rising up like this, one morning where you lived, she took a look around.
Phil Harris is our narrator, and he is also the voice of Patu, the dog who has bunions and therefore wears shoes that he cannot tie. And this is the movie we're getting into. But we start off very existentially with, what if the sun didn't come up? Which is kind of heavy for a super, like, little kids movie. And goes on to introduce Chanticleer, who is our Rooster Elvis, voiced by Glenn Campbell, who is actually friends with Elvis in real life and used to do Elvis impersonations to Elvis. So, you know, it's okay. And he is just the golden voiced rooster that everyone at the farm thinks actually brings up the sunshine. And they're like, he's not the smartest, tool in the shed, but also he's fantastic and everyone loves him. Well, everyone except for the Grand Duke of Owls, voiced by Christopher Plummer. I have issues. But he has a problem with Chanticleer bringing up the sun because owls like the nighttime. So the sun cannot shine. So he sends a rival rooster, an evil rooster, if you will, to go and pick a fight with Chanticleer, which Chanticleer wins, but not in time to beat the sun to rising with his crow. So that's when the whole farm, including Chanticleer, find out he doesn't actually bring up the sun. That is not a power that he controls. And everyone kind of turns on him, and he has this gigantic existential crisis and leaves the farm. And then everything starts raining. And then we find out we're reading a book. So far, this has been a bedtime story for a tiny child, Edmund, who has the cutest voice that was meant for a cartoon, big time. And his mom is reading him a story before bed as there is a gigantic storm outside. and they happen to live on a farm as well. Is it the same farm? I don't know. That was a book, or is it? So we have the dad coming in for kind of a jump scare moment, saying that, the whole barn is flooding and that all the animals need to be secured and they need to like sandbag everything. And him and Edmund's two older brothers are out there doing it. And so they need the mom to help. But Edmund is too little to help. It's too dangerous. He just needs to go to bed. Is the mom the problem? We'll find out later. But Edmund is very like, no, I can help. And he figures out that the reason why it's still raining is because Chanticleer hasn't come back to the barn. Obviously, because stories are real. But sure enough, he's actually pretty on point because he starts screaming for Chanticleer out the window and all of a sudden gets answered by the Grand High Duke. And this whole movie becomes mixed media. It's half cartoon, half live action. And the Duke is just like, hey, I noticed you were calling for someone. I don't like that. So you're going to have to go. So I'm probably going to eat you. So I'm going to turn you into a kitten. And the Grand High Duke of Owls, which we don't know how he has powers when no one else does. Maybe it's an owl thing. Maybe he's David Bowie. Oh my God, Christopher Plummer and David Bowie. I'll deal with that one later. But ends up turning him into a cartoon kitten who has a Davy Crockett raccoon hat on his head the whole movie and is a kitten in pajamas, which is so cute. But anyway. And now the entire room also turns into a cartoon and kind of a cool little like bleaching in sequence. Also, I should point out this is a Don Bluth cartoon who I have mixed feelings for. Personally, I love Don Bluth cartoons. I just hate how Don Bluth Pictures got started. But anyway, you know what? No, never mind. This is my soapbox. I'm going to get on it. So Don Bluth Pictures, if you do not know, started because Don Bluth was originally a Disney Imagineer and animator. And he was there at a time when the Disney company was kind of in haywire, like Walt had died and they still had the 9 old men, which were like the old guard of animators that were slowly phasing out and were kind of butting heads with the new animators. So on his birthday, Don Bluth left and quit Disney and took 11 of their animators with them, which was about 15% of their animation department, and started his own company, which then started with The Secret of Nim, which some have noted that that movie is about a mouse. So someone else could possibly say it all started with the mouse. And then led up to things that ended up with the Disney Renaissance. So in a way, his action while screwing over the Disney department did lead to some of the best Disney movies of all time. But that's my soapbox. Moving on. So now that everything's a cartoon, more cartoon characters show up. And we have Peepers, who is the mouse from the farm. She is like very powerhouse woman. She does not let anything stop her. She's got glasses. She's adorable. She's voiced by Sandy Duncan. We have Snipes, the magpie, who's very neurotic and of course is voiced by Eddie Deason, who you might know from, first of all, just being the annoying voice in a lot of things, like Polar Express, but also he was the nerd Eugene in Grease. But anyway, and of course Patu, the dog, who's also the narrator, and he's cool. He's got bunions. Edmund helps him tie his shoes. It's endearing. But Edmund blasts the Grand Owl out with a flashlight, because lights are bad to owls. So as long as they have a flashlight or some bright light source, they are able to fend off the owls like a shield. This is important for the whole thing. But everyone knows that Edmund was calling for Chanticleer, and they all also believe that the whole reason that the sun hasn't come out since he left is because he left. There's even in the cartoon where as soon as Chanticleer starts leaving the barn, the sun, which was coming up, just goes, nope. And so, they figure out he went to the city. They want to go find him and try and save the farm, stop the rain, because the water level is getting higher and higher. And the house itself, of which they are on the top floor, is starting to get flooded up to the top floor. Also, where's Edmund's parents and brothers and all the other animals? We don't know, but it doesn't look good. So they decide that they're going to head off, the 4 of them. The rest of the animals, including like a cute like piggy dude and some other stuff, are going to stay behind and watch the farm and look out for the owls and make sure they have enough batteries to keep in that flashlight, because otherwise they're all eaten. But the big overarching theme that we point out in this movie is Edmund is constantly like, I'm a little kitten. What can I do? I can do even less than I was when I was a boy. And everyone's like, well, you've been to the city before, so you're the one who's going to show us how to get there. But Peepers the mouse is always just like, I'm even smaller than you, and I can do literally anything, so get it together. And they keep calling him like a fraidy cat and stuff, which is why he's a kitten, so they could make that joke. But moving on. Got the theme? Cool. Kids can do anything. But we cut to the owls, which are in this giant, like, dead oak tree thing. And we get to know a little bit more about them. They're conservatives. They like gospel music and classical music, and they do not like rock and roll. And definitely don't like the sun and the happiness that rock and roll brings. And the Grand Duke has a nephew named Hunch, who is absolutely annoying. In all honesty, there are a few characters in this movie that are just no. But honestly, I think Snipes, the one that is the magpie that goes with them everywhere, is worse than Hunch, but Hunch is still pretty bad. And he's just this tiny little owl that has like a pilot's hat and a Swiss Army knife with literally everything on it, including like a spatula and a plunger. And the Duke sends Hunch to go and stop the kitten and the magpie and the dog and the mouse in the travel trunk that they are now using as a boat because everything is flooded, and to take them out and stop them from getting to the city. This sounds more convoluted than it really is. It's not. It's just kind of crazy. But moving on. But Hunch is really inept. He's more, they even say in the movie, he's more of a nuisance than effective, but the fact that he is a nuisance does make a lot of things harder for people. So after getting attacked by Hunch, they end up like closing the lid and being able to escape through an aqueduct pipe. That Hunch is like, oh yeah, they're done. They're in the pipe. They're gone. And turns he thought it was an adequate pipe, which would adequately get rid of them. And as soon as he tells the Grand Duke this plan and that they're adequately taken care of, he's like, oh, that's not an adequate pipe. That's an aqueduct pipe. It goes straight to the city. Which, conveniently enough, yes.
It's an
Inconveniently enough, Snipes is claustrophobic. The magpie with the annoying voice is claustrophobic. And they are in a closed trunk in a pipe filled with water, and he immediately starts pecking holes all over the trunk that they are in, which then starts flooding because they're all about to die, and I would have killed the magpie at this point. Sorry, he is more trouble than he is help. He needs to go sacrifice the magpie. We're done. But they don't, of course. They end up surfacing outside of the pipe just in time, and for some reason the box is not flooded anymore and doesn't sink even with all the holes and the water retention. But it doesn't matter anyway because they end up going out the end of the pipe, which is kind of like a waterfall, and then the whole trunk gets destroyed anyway. So who cares? But this is when our friends come to the city, which is not flooded, and we find out what's been going on with Chanticleer since he left the farm. They're looking all over for him. They're checking the phone book because that used to be a thing in 91, and they're looking for Chanticleer, and they're asking people, where's Chanticleer? Except he has changed his name to the King. Also, the city happens to be Las Vegas. Like, it's definitely Las Vegas. So we have all of these like Vegas review signs and everything, and they are passing sign after sign that says the King and just completely missing the fact that it is who they are looking for. So Chanticleer has basically become full Vegas Elvis and has the show and even does the music and everything, does the voice. It's Elvis. We know it's Elvis. It's okay. And we find that he has been working for a fox named Pinky, who is voiced by the same guy who was the sheriff of Nottingham in the Robin Hood cartoon as well. And with the exception of the coloring, looks exactly the same too. So I wonder what Disney said about that, but moving on. Who is definitely a Colonel Tom Parker stand-in. If you don't know, Colonel Tom Parker was Elvis's manager who took serious advantage of him for years and years and is the reason he, was broke and on so many drugs because he was being controlled. Anyway, keeping it light. But yeah, he's definitely a Colonel Tom Parker. He has like a pink Cadillac and everything, even though that was what Elvis bought for his mom, but I'm moving on anyway. He's got the pink Cadillac and he's got a pink trailer and his name is Pinky, and here we go. And he's definitely, obviously, if he is a fox voiced by the Sheriff of Nottingham, then clearly he is a bad guy. And we also meet Goldie, who is this adorable chick who's definitely not supposed to be like a Marilyn Monroe type, but she's voiced by Ellen Green of Little Shop of Horrors, Somewhere That's Green. So her voice is absolutely adorable. And she's tired of being a chorus girl. She thinks she has more talent than the king does, and like, why is she in the background? And as soon as Pinky finds out, because he gets called by his boss, who happens to be the Grand Duke. How many cities does this guy have people in? Like, what is the lore here? What is with the Duke? And he has magic and he has contacts in Vegas. Like, is this a John Wick situation? Is it all interconnected? I need answers. Anyway. But Pinky finds out that they are on their way to get him and feels that Chanticleer needs to be a little bit more controlled because he has definitely been homesick and would be very susceptible to the people that are trying to come take him back home. So he throws in Goldie to try and seduce the king and keep him under control, basically. Unfortunately, go figure, because yay, in trying to seduce the king, she ends up actually falling for him. But she's told by Pinky, who she has no reason not to trust because Hollywood and managers, that no, the kitty is the bad one, and you need to protect him from this bad evil kitty. But we do have a cute little musical number, which is very much like an Elvis style review, but it's called Treasure Hunt, and there's like sharks in a big ship. Meanwhile, there are bouncers at this club and everywhere surrounding the king that are actual frogs. Because bouncers. That's good. I don't care what you say. That is good. So the gang are at the review. They got a table and everything. They like write a note saying that they want him to come home, but no one will give it to him because they think it's just fan mail. And then the bouncers see them there, so then they dress up like they're in the show and are turning the note into a paper airplane that they are trying to get to Chanticleer while he's on stage. And it's a whole chase scene and everything like that. But it is ended as soon as Goldie shows up and surprises the king with a number for him and ends up like basically giving him a big old smooch, and all of a sudden he's hooked. And even Patou's just like, oh no, he's gone now. He's gone. And there's even a really cute scene because apparently Chanticleer's house is a farm on the top of this gigantic tower that has this giant couch swing even above that, just overlooking the whole city. And you have him and Goldie just sitting there singing to each other. Clearly she is falling for him and is kind of conflicted about it, but then it's just like going with it. And the gang is on this other rooftop and they see them, and Patou's like, oh no, he's gone. He's a million miles away. And Edmund's like, he's right there. What are you talking about? He's like, no, he's not. He's in space right now. And so Edmund's like, fine, if I can't get to him, I'll talk to her. And so Edmund ends up going to Goldie's dressing room, not knowing that she's been pre-warned that he's a bad guy. But he's trying to let Goldie know, like, hey, we need Chanticleer to come back to the farm. Like, you're the only one that can help him. There are bad things happening. I need you to talk to him. And then she's like, oh, you're the bad kitty. And then screams for help. So then Edmund and the rest of the gang end up getting kidnapped by Pinky and the bouncers and taken away to a trailer. And this is when Goldie first sees Pinky's true colors. And she's like, oh, wait, what have I done? So then we see that Goldie and the king are filming for a video where they're like on a motorcycle that's got like this whole scene moving behind them kind of situation. And so even though Pinky's watching like the whole thing, Goldie basically like while filming tries to sneak to Chanticleer like, hey, I did a bad thing. Here's the paper airplane I intercepted. Your friends are here. They're still here. Pinky's got them locked up in his trailer. And this is when he's all just like, excuse me, what? And Pinky's just like, all right, drop the veil. I'm the bad guy. You're going to keep doing what you're going to keep doing. Otherwise, you'll never see your friends again. And there's a great line where Chanticleer goes, that's blackmail. And Pinky goes, that's showbiz. Like, oh, we're getting real. But meanwhile, Hunch is still trying to take out Edmund and friends, and even though they're captured and everything's fine, he still sees that he needs to do this. So this is when they're like, yeah, he's not really a threat. He's more of a nuisance. And in him trying to like take them out as they're already strung up upside down in this trailer, he just ends up setting them free, kind of. And so they're like running all over the trailer, like fighting each other or like chasing each other. And he's going to take him out with his plunger on a Swiss Army knife. It's a weird movie, guys, okay? But it's cute. So the king is very upset for all of this. He feels kind of betrayed because even Pinky let him know, like, hey, like, you're supposed to do your job and keep him in line. What are you doing telling him the truth? And so betrayal, heartache, whatever. But they're still filming. So then Chanticleer's like, I'm thinking, hang on. And he's like, wait, I'm literally on a motorcycle. So he takes off with Goldie on the motorcycle that they were filming on and go to Pinky's trailer to try and save the gang. So when they get there, though, misfortune happens because the gang has been running around trying to deal with Hunch. Patou has a giant frying pan, because frying pans, and accidentally whacks Chanticleer in the face instead of Hunch. And Chanticleer is kind of out for the count and is very concussed. And even when he does come to a little bit later, is like full out like drunk almost. So whoops. So the gang end up grabbing Chanticleer and loading him into Pinky's Cadillac, which is still tied up to Pinky's trailer, by the way, and they end up taking off trying to get back to the farm. However, Hunch is still in the trailer with his Swiss Army knife that's a plunger, and he's trying to take them out. Also, you have this whole thing where Edmund and Peepers are like trying to drive the car, and Edmund's like, I can't drive, and Peepers like, well, I can, so get on board. And then again, so Peepers is like, we have to detach the trailer. And Edmund's like, what are you talking about? We can't do this. And she's all just like, oh my God, you scaredy cat. And so Edmund's like freaking out, but Peepers goes to detach the trailer and she ends up getting in trouble and like detaching and going flying with the trailer that then crashes into a giant water tower that had Pinky's face on it for some reason. And this is when Edmund goes into like a full existential crisis and he's just freaking out because everyone's been calling him a fraidy cat. And he's like, I can't do anything, fraidy cat, and blah, 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 blah. And then finally grows a pair and it's like, yep, nope, we got to go save Peepers now because we don't know what's going on there. So then he takes the car and they do a U-E to go get Peepers out of the water tower that is falling down now. And there's a whole climbing scene and it's almost pointless because, they just end up getting up there and falling, but they end up falling into Pinky's helicopter. So then, Pinky's all like, oh, great, you got him. Cool, thanks. Except Peepers is driving the helicopter. This is crazy. Also, the helicopter is pink. So they end up flying back to the barn just as the rest of the gang is having the batteries on the flashlight die, the last of the batteries. And so the owls are all just like, oh, good, supper time. Just as the gang shows up, blasts him with the spotlight on the helicopter to get them away. And when Chanticleer starts waking up, like in Goldie's lap, and Hunch just jumps out and is like, gotcha! And Goldie just slaps him across the whole place, which he then ends up crashing into a fire hydrant that, zooms all over the place. And that's how they crash. But still, landings for suckers. Also, the water is very much like almost to the top of this house. The only reason that, that we can even see inside is because they broke through the roof at the opening scene in the movie. But Chanticleer is now awake, totally drunk, very concussed, and doesn't even think he can crow anymore because crowing and singing are two different things apparently, even though he usually does both in tandem, but whatever. And they're all just like, the sun has not shined since you left. We are so sorry for everything we said to you. Like, you're our friend. We did not mean to put you through that kind of stuff. Like, please help us. We got to do the thing. And to the point where Edmund starts cheering for Chanticleer and he starts leading a cheer to basically like boost him up so that he can crow and blah, blah, blah. Except the Duke does not like this and shows up and literally strangles the child until the child is knocked out cold. Like, you see him breathing, but you don't know if he's going to make it because no one knows how to wake up a kid that's been strangled by magic. And Edmund ends up getting strangled. Like, Patou is pissed. And he immediately starts, like, vengefully restarting the chant for Chanticleer. Just as the Duke has him, like, trapped and almost drowning. But I don't know, it gives me kind of chills a little bit, at least it did when I was a kid, where it's like he just sees that this little adorable boy has been strangled by a monster and just goes, Chanticleer. Like, it's, I don't know. Anyway, I did it bad, but whatever. And so it's crazy because then the owl is just getting like magically bigger and bigger and bigger. So the thing that he has trapped Chanticleer in, because he has trapped Chanticleer at this point, he's like up to his chest in dirt. And because the Duke has gotten so big, he's sinking whatever they're on. And so at this point, Chanticleer is like underwater. But then he has his existential crisis moment where everything we've heard in the last couple of minutes is playing in his head. And all of a sudden he's like, nope, I got this. And just cockadoo. And Chanticleer ends up pulling like a whole Superman and just like cockadoos all over the entire like length of the outside of the earth to make the sun come up for him, because apparently he had to speak to it directly. And then the Grand High Duke ends up shrinking to even smaller than Hunch. And our boy Hunch ends up getting his revenge against his abusive uncle, which is pretty funny. Yeah, the sun is out now, and the water is magically dissipating, and everything's better except for Edmund, who is still knocked out cold because no one knows how to revive a horse-choked child, basically. But he then ends up turning from the cartoon kitten back into the human little boy, and we're back to a cross-media picture. So once he turns back into a real boy, Peepers is trying to like call him, wake him up, and it turns into Edmund's mom's voice, which is not Edmund's mom's voice. Really quick side note here. The actress who played Edmund's mom was dubbed by a different famous actress. Well, somewhat famous. She was in like Frighteners, and she was in a couple of other things. But like, you hear the voice and you know it's her if you've seen anything she's been in.
Wake up, honey.
And it does not match the face of Edmund's mom, and I do not know why they dubbed that. Like, I looked for it in trivia, I didn't see it, but like, I don't know why. Anyway, moving on. Edmund's awake and the sun is out and everyone's alive and the water's gone and everything's okay. And Edmund's mom is like, no, you need to go back into bed. You got to stay in bed. You got to stay asleep, blah, blah, blah. Even though, again, the sun is out, like, he should be awake now. Does the mom have Munchausen's by proxy? Like, Edmund's gone this whole thing being like, I'm too weak. I can't do anything. I'm not capable of anything. And then you got his mom who's just like, you're not capable of anything. Stay in bed all day. Let us handle all of the things and you stay my weak, helpless little baby. I'm just saying the mom might have been the problem the whole time. Edmund needs to get out of that situation. But it doesn't matter because Edmund is all just like, yay, where's Shanti in the gang? Oh, wait, it's a story. Oh, wait, it's not. Chanticleer comes like flying out of the book and takes Edmund to the farm, and it's kind of like Mary Poppins with the whole like the real person in the cartoon world, but not nearly as good of effects, even though this came out decades after Mary Poppins, but I digress. And you've got Goldie now living on the farm, pulling a whole like Daisy Duke situation, and it's super cute. And the end of the song that we opened with, and that was Rockadoodle. It is one of my favorites out of the like Fever Dream kid movies from the 90s. It really is. Definitely because of the Elvis aspect, 100%. This is very my mom's brainwashing or something, I don't know. But it's cute. I like it. It is 100% a nostalgic thing, but hey, that's part of what this channel's about. So yeah, we appreciate the cheesy every now and then. At least from when we were little, we can look back and be like, all right, I know why I liked that. So yeah, that was Rockadoodle. Have you seen it? Do you remember it? Tell me about it. I want to know. Do you end up seeing this and just like, oh, yeah, you know, that sounds like something I can watch with my kids, you know, from my era? Let me know. I want to hear all about it. But I've been Obscure Girl. Pretty please check me out on Patreon. Please like my channel if you like my channel. Please like this video if you like this video. And seriously, subscribing helps so much. And yeah, I've been Obscure Girl. The rest is confetti.